gonna talk about Nefertiti and what the heck is going on in Egypt during that time and why it's still affecting us. Alrighty, I think we're ready. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Starlight Haven. My name is Tabitha Romero, and we are here today. We're going to talk about Nefertiti and like all of her glory and her beauty. But we're also going to talk about the shadow side to her because it exists in all of us. Not one of us is immune to the shadow side, and it's something that is beckoning us to look at, especially as we reconnect with the mother and the feminine Christ, and as we herald that new age in, we must look at these things. And so that's why I'm here today, and it's not to make Nefertiti an antagonist of the story of just a super villain in the classism that was ancient Egypt. But I am here today to bring attention and awareness to the different archetypes that we embody as people. Once again, this is a Songs of Mu segment. This is where we start to bring back the ancient wisdom of Mu so we can integrate it back into our cellular being. And yeah, so we are going to begin. Yeah, we will be talking about Nefertiti as the archetype of the wounded mother and warrioress, because we know, if you've been looking at my old videos, that we are bringing back the true feminine warrior, what it means to be a warrior. And like I said in my last videos, we are not discounting the masculine in this case at all, but we are going to be taking a look at the feminine for a little while, because we are focusing on the feminine Christ, and of course that affects all of us, sons as well, not just the daughters. And so if you are a masculine watching this video, this will still benefit you, I promise. So before we begin, I wanted to go ahead and pull up what my team of, they call themselves Rama, they're guardians connected to India, and they describe themselves as sparkles, they're glitters of light, they're deeply our helpers. They love us, they call us seeds of nourishment, and their message is deeply entwined with our message today, and that is not to change ourselves for others, but to allow others to shine as well and allow ourselves to shine. They wanted us to know that the temples that we are accessing on the planet right now are not temples of servitude. They are abundant. They are not associated with shame or shattering, which we can look at when it comes to the erasure, temporary erasure of the pantheon that happened while Nefertiti was queen. So these beings, they honor us as grounded trees, clearing the way for these temples to be accessed by all through reverence. And we are here restoring reverence for all life. Okay, so we are going to start talking about Nefertiti. So if you know anything about ancient Egypt, I can bet on you knowing about Nefertiti. I can bet on you having seen her bust that is supposedly real, supposedly not real, that they have in Germany. And so it gives us a little bit of insight into what she might have looked like, if it's even real. We know that her tomb has not been found, her body hasn't been found. There are theories that she ended up ruling as a pharaoh under a completely different name that was similar to her name but not exact. Who knows? Who knows what happened, right? We're only here to theorize, but essentially just talk about her as an archetype. And the wounded mother archetype is not singularly a Nefertiti type, or singularly Nefertiti, right? We could all embody the wounded mother when we don't have time to rest and replenish ourselves, when we don't have enough resources for our children, when we have a habit of controlling our children. These are all wounded mother characteristics. And so we can look in history and we can see other wounded mother archetypes through Marie Antoinette, right? Let them eat cake, but then also, people, mothers and children are starving. Who else? Dolores Umbridge is a good example. If you watch Harry Potter, you know that she is presented as a nurturing mother type, but then she also has a very cruel side. There was another example in Russia, and it was related to the motherland, and that directly correlates to the warrioress and even the stance that she's in. And this was largely seen as propaganda for Russia. And so there are different scenarios in which we could speak about, but because this is directly tied to our dollar here in the United States, where I am at, we will be looking at Nefertiti in Egypt specifically. And so we will begin. We are going to talk about her background a little bit. She was the wife of, I'm going to butcher this name, oh my goodness, Akhenaten. And they were responsible for the temporary erasure of the Egyptian pantheon into a monotheistic worship of the sun disk Aten. And there's even, I think, a little you'll or some sort of speech that you can research where Akhenaten actually had referred to himself as the son of God, and that we could only come to God through him. And that sounds awfully familiar to another story we are told. Nefertiti is often referred to as Egypt's greatest queen and the most powerful one. It is no wonder because, she's often depicted driving her own war chariot, smiting her enemies. Like she was the original OG badass, right? What I do want to honor is that and why people revere her. She was shown as a woman in her power. She demanded equality from her male counterparts, from her own husband. And this is important imagery for us. And I don't want to take that away, right? I don't want to take away the aspect of this story. However, I do want to explore this wounded mother archetype that is within her and how she and many other women, right, have connected to this energy from the severing of our being from the true energy of the mother. So I thought this was interesting when I was doing my research because, like I said, when I think of Nefertiti, I think of that big hat and like all of the theories about her hiding her elongated head, all this stuff. But when I was researching, I did see that early in her rule, she wanted to embody the energy of the goddess. She was even emboldened to wear Hathor's crown. This was obviously, it was a political move. She wanted to signal to her subjects that she was now the embodiment of the goddess. If you wanted to connect to the goddess, her and her daughters were how you were going to do it. No one else, right? The pantheon was out of the question. And so, according to the Harvard Gazette, Nefertiti wore the crown of Hathor, elevating her status as a sex goddess, able to manifest the regenerative power of sexual rejuvenation. Yeah, so she made a choice here, right? She wanted to embody the mother. And these choices always, cue Spider-Man, Uncle Ben, but these choices come with great responsibility as a ruler, especially when you are going to embody the mother herself. This is where I began to notice a pattern here of the commodification of the goddess without the true sustenance to bear the crown. And so what happens when you commodify the mother, you commodify her children. And so this is where I was seeing the mother wounding, and I felt it the strongest. So when archaeologists went to go actually, see what the grave sites looked like of the commoners of this time period of this city looked like, they were finding that these people were actually starving, despite Nefertiti representing the mother, showing so much abundance that was happening during this time. Apparently, it was going one place, right? All right, so we are going to go into something called the true merchant of time. And so, through my Moldavite guide, Emery, who we've connected with before, she's great, we are going to be discussing why it is important that we witness the looshing energy that is happening through the storytelling of Nefertiti. Because what I want you all to understand is that history is storytelling. It could also be used as propaganda, and it could also be used to hold spells into the earth. And it's why they are told time and time again, because they reactivate our cellular memory and they suppress other ones that lay dormant because we are too afraid, because it means punishment. And so, what we will go back to is that it is important to remember that history does encapsulate time. So, a record is kept of that story through the land and subsequently ourselves. So, regardless if we are a million years ahead, this encapsulation is still presently occurring through this storytelling. It is in constant activation, paralleling stories that remind our nervous system of that memory. So, this includes the tentacles of servitude, of jealousy. We must be willing to witness the wounded mother archetype that has existed within ourselves, the original mother wound that has occurred through the severing of our umbilicus and our astral cord. We must see it to heal it, to breathe deep compassion into it, and this creates a new lens of us to view history and these archetypes from. My guide did compare this looshing system to a lease, and this lease is now up. So we can either, it's just like a house. You could either choose to renew that lease or you could choose to complete it and move on. And we can imagine that this house has all sorts of issues and we don't want to just stay in it because we're comfortable, right? We want to move on and see what could be there for us to, enhance our lives now, to live in our joy instead of just dealing with something because we're used to it. So, this story that we are working through right now is titled The Shepherds of Nefertiti. And through this storytelling, certain memories were changed. And this is the artificial memory that we are working with. This later would impact the Hermetic religious orders. And I'm talking, I kind of do have a tendency to mesh in certain religions with each other. Like, I do think about Hermeticism as connected to Scientology, and there's just different, things that become weaponized through this impact. So, this later impacted these religious orders with actions being taken to create more money, right? Manipulate the currency of life by spending life force that was not theirs to hold through the same servitude. I was also witnessing the intentional spoiling of crops, even though, this town, it was thriving, but you know? So, why does this matter? So, if someone were to wear the crown of the mother goddess of fertility, aka Hathor, create art that depicts fat cows and nourishment, why are these people starving? And herein lies the issue. And we can see that in our own society. We know that this is a mirror for what is happening here in the United States and probably other places in the world. And I can only speak for where I am at. But the issue lies in embodiment. There is no embodiment of the mother when acting as the mother. And this is the wounded mother archetype. It's the absent mother who is controlling and neglectful, one who does not have enough time for her children because she herself has unmet needs. And so while the goddess erasure was occurring, there was also an erasure of independence into servitude. Alongside this message, I could feel the goddess Pele, and I could feel this implosion of the volcano Kilauea, which was described to me as the Pool of Eloheim. And this pool contains the planetary genetic memory of rest, of rejuvenation. This contains the energy of the true spenders, ones that knew the true currency was not just money. It was our energy, it was our bodies, it was our time. The true transaction is speaking and truly being heard. It is not controlling who hears us and desperately wanting them to follow what we believe, but synchronizing to those who already do and allowing that currency to flow and exchange. This is part of a larger onset of currency spells that are on the planet that are tied to the dollar that we use daily. It is a bottleneck for the true currency to flow through the nourishment of the mother. And so, yeah, it doesn't allow that to flow because we are all focused on make money so we can survive. But here we are, not resting, not taking the time that we need to, fully enjoy our lives. And some people have got this dialed in, so this is not going to be a message for everybody, right? Like, there are people out there that, they have their time management like to a T. They don't feel overrun by money. They don't feel overrun by life that they feel like they have to live according to the society. They are living in their freedom, right? And they hold those codes. And so some of us are still getting to that point of nourishment and freedom. This connection that we have to this pool of Elohai is also our ability to sustain ourselves so that we can witness others in the same light. And so with Nefertiti, what I was feeling was jealousy was being born from witnessing others in this flow. And so they were instead suspended in time. And so here the wounded mother came in, and instead of being a spender herself and joining them and, being in joy with them, she controlled them. And this is where people become the currency that is spent by someone in control, and sovereignty is no longer honored. And this was a memory that was actually stored within the seashells on shorelines of our oceans. And we could collect those memories and we could, see them. They contained the memory of the Pool of Elohai. This was a book to be read, and it was closed off because of servitude. That it's like that book got a lock on it because we weren't able to access that because we were controlled. And this created a deep loneliness that I truly, truly believe that Nefertiti herself was likely experiencing. And that is a direct consequence that we face when we are disconnected from the mother, the true mother, the holy mother that is very, very deeply nourishing, that has enough for all of her children. What I also wanted to do is, while we were on the subject of Egypt, I was thinking about the pyramids, and I was thinking about, this concept of a pyramid scheme and why we have so many different constructs connected to the pyramid itself. Even our dollar bill has the pyramid on it, right? And if you look up the history, it's just because, oh, like, it's the strongest structure in the world. It's missing the top because it's always unfinished. And, the eye is the eye of God. Yeah, I don't believe any of that. I don't believe it for a second. I was like, okay, you're going to be telling people that, but I don't think so. When we look at these pyramids, we can think about the classism that existed in ancient Egypt. And this wasn't just during Nefertiti's time, right? And of course, this is not really an acknowledgement of other theories of how the pyramids got there, but I am just looking at the structure of the pyramid itself and what it is connected to in terms of servitude. And so with these pyramids, and I'll attach a photo here, you had, the brunt of the labor, all of the metaphorical and literal heavy lifting being done by these servants, right? And then you slowly made your way up, and of course, you know, this is where all the wealth is at, but as we trickle our way down, it slowly starts to diminish at the bottom. Some of these workers were people who were war prisoners and, all kinds of stuff, or people who were indebted. So this servitude was their way of passing the time. It was their way of trying to become free again. And so they got trapped in this cycle, and we also get trapped in this cycle. And then this had me thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and how even that itself, like, is not like, these are not inherently bad. Well, I mean, obviously a class system is probably pretty inherently bad, but like the hierarchy of needs itself is not, inherently bad. It talks about what we do need to survive, to become whole, to become ourselves. And at the very bottom of that is literally housing, it's food, it's being able to be safe. And a lot of that only exists for the fact that we have this classism, right? That we have this structure, and our system literally depends on it. And so I was feeling that this was a spell that was being transmitted through this land connected to our dollar bill. So as we spend it, as we use this currency, it was an attempt to essentially, one, debilitate the dollar itself, the energy of what money truly is. It was to debilitate it, to encapsulate it in something that is greedy, that is lacking. And that was never, never the intention of our true currency, right? And so these spells that are casted, as we spend the money and we consent and we do all of this stuff, we are reinforcing those spells because they're already there. And so as these spells break, as we acknowledge these things, and as we do not consent to allowing our currency to represent this anymore, that doesn't mean you don't use money, right? But it does mean that you change the way that you view money and yourself as a currency. And that is what changes the story. And we're going to talk more about this in my next video. But yeah, so I did put that this is part of the spell casted on the dollar bill. It is human souls tied to the same laborious network that does not honor rest, right? And it's on the one, right? The $1, the one unity. And it felt like something to me. Like, it just really truly did. I can't exactly put my finger on it, but at the end of this, we will be talking about, what currency means as far as the law of one. And this to me just breaks that, right? And it's on the $1 bill. So all of our needs, right, should be met equally. And so I could feel the energy of the pyramids. They no longer wanted to be tied to slavery or inequality. It wanted to move into this regenerative toroidal shape, and it wanted to, move in the same regenerative flow that the mother does and work in conjunction with the organic flow of humanity. And so we are healing this with them as we do work to witness the wounded mother. So this is the direct archetype that we must look at within ourselves as we integrate the feminine Christ, because we have all been there. Nefertiti is, like I said, not the antagonist of this story. She's not some super villain, but she's simply a mirror of what occurs when the mother is suppressed, right? And it's so important that we look at this. Okay, if we are, women, and we are given and claiming our power, right? Last thing that we want to do is be super unaware of what happens when that power is distorted. We need to be aware of these things. That way we can check ourselves, man. We can check each other and know when we need to hold ourselves or other people in those moments. And that doesn't mean through shame. That doesn't mean through like you're not enoughness. That means I love you and I see you and I hold you and I remind you of the mother and her never-ending supply of nourishment that she has for us. We always, once we make the choice, we always connect. She always holds us and she helps hold us accountable. And so this is why I wanted to bring her up. Nefertiti herself was because I wanted to look at what happens here when that is not honored. We've all experienced this jealousy, we've all seen other people living in their joy. We can experience jealousy from witnessing that because we want that for ourselves. We desire that deeply for ourselves because we know we deserve it as children of God, as children of the goddess. When people aren't given the chance to shine, reverence for life is lost. There is a disconnection from the soul to the body. And instead, we feel like a host for someone else's agenda, someone else's, creation, their mission that was never ours to begin with. And this is a type of soul level holocaust, and that is the forced abandoning of the self. So now the restoration of these true memories connected to the Pool of Eloheim has begun, and we are paying witness to the internal wounded mother and subsequently the child as the sacrificial lamb, because we are both, we are, as women, and a lot of us represent the mother, right? And a lot of us also represent the child of a mother. And so we are all children of the mother. And when we look at the wounded mother, when we have been in scenarios ourselves as children, and this is no shame to us as mothers or our ancestors, right? It is a sacred honoring of the hardships that we have all been through, but we have also experienced the child as a sacrificial lamb, and we are redefining transactions through this restoration, through this witnessing. We are rehabilitating the true currency, and as a result, we are freeing the dollar from its own decree of separation. So we write a new decree in connection with the volcano Kilauea and in correspondence and union with the Pool of Eloheim. And it is that we will no longer allow the dollar and our bodies to be used as a tool to entrap us into perpetual servitude. We reclaim our freedom to speak, to spend according to the law of one, and to enjoy the fruits of our labor. When we sparkle in this way, we receive nourishment, we have enough, and we can give to others. And this is the way of the mother as the warrior. And we are here, right? We aren't succumbing to our wounds. We are healing them. We are ready. We are connected to the mother herself. And if you haven't watched my video where we do reconnect with the energy of the mother through your fontanelle and through our umbilicus, please go watch that video. It is so beautiful and so important to reconnect with the universal mother, the universal life force giver. The portal to her womb is open. We are here, and please go watch it. It's so good. And yeah, and so in my next video we will be talking about Moses, and we will be diving a little bit more into Egypt and into the dollar. But yeah, Moses is speaking super loud right now. So we are going to go ahead and give it a listen. I am sending you guys all so much love and joy. Thank you for receiving me. And I will see you guys again soon. Bye.